Belçika, dondurulmuş Rus varlıklarının Ukrayna için kullanımına dikkat çekiyor.
Let's do it in English. I hope I just told you in Spanish that it should be clear that if we talk about the Russian assets, and I imagine that I have a full house, not because you want to hear me speak about competitivity, the housing problem in the European Union, our approach to the membership of Moldova and Ukraine to the European Union Cluster 1, the situation in the Middle East, European defense and security, competitivity and the double transition. If so, please ask me questions. If not, I suppose most of you are here to talk about the frozen and immobilized Russian assets. And maybe it is important to underline, first and foremost, that Belgium does not want to see €1 of that money returned to Russia. The philosophy has always been, and that's normal if you talk about immobilized assets, which are sovereign assets, it's central bank money. We're not talking about the frozen assets, to be very clear, because I noticed that there is a lot of mix-ups and a lot of colleagues mix these terms up, which you shouldn't do, because legally everything you do and everything you say is of course of utmost importance. Frozen assets belong to diverse beneficiaries and are not at play here. We're talking about the immobilized assets, the sovereign assets, the central bank money. You could compare it what happened with the war that Iraq waged in Kuwait. They also invaded the country. Their sovereign assets were also immobilized, and after the war the money was used for the reconstruction of Kuwait. And that is until now the philosophy that Europe has followed, and other nations as well. There are immobilized assets in Japan. 50 billion is in Japan in immobilized assets, and there are amounts in immobilized and frozen assets in the UK, in Canada, in the United States, in Switzerland and other nations, and they're all immobilized. So the entire world reacts in exactly the same way. You immobilize central bank money, you wait until there is a peace treaty, and in that peace treaty you get a signature of both parties, and there is an agreement on what should be done with the money. And our philosophy has always been, at the end of the day, Ukraine needs to be reconstructed. That will probably take hundreds of billions of euros to repair the destruction, and at that moment the Russian money can be used because it will be also legally possible in the framework of a peace treaty. Now the proposals that can be made, because until now I haven't seen any concrete texts yet, because I haven't read any concrete texts yet, but I have been explained, of course, what a new proposal can look like, and the new proposal is that we are going to do something that has never been done before. We're gonna not confiscate, because we cannot use the word confiscate, but if it looks like confiscation, smells like confiscation, and it talks like confiscation, maybe you could call it a sort of confiscation. You're gonna take the money, but it is now at the ECB. So Euroclear has all kinds of assets that have turned into cash. The cash is deposited at the ECB. You have windfall profits that are used to pay the G7 loan, and then you have tax money in Belgium on these windfall profits that is used for the bilateral aid to Ukraine. That's the chicken and the golden eggs. The eggs are given to Ukraine. The chicken is sitting at the ECB, but it is the chicken of Euroclear which represents the claim that Russia has on its sovereign assets. If you take the chicken and you start eating it by giving loans to Ukraine, saying you can start and eat the chicken, then you're in a different situation. Legally, you're in a totally different situation. Can this be legal? This is a very good question. It's a very good question. There are no clear answers. If you ask lawyers, they usually present you also with a big bill. You have to pay them an enormous amount of money, and then they give you a text that you don't understand. And then you get a second opinion of another lawyer that you even have to pay more, and that you don't understand as well. And is it possible? Is it not possible? There's no clarity on that. In Japan, they have decided not possible. Central bank money is immune. We're not going to touch it. There's a certain logic to this. Even during the Second World War, this did not happen. Immobilized money is immune. It's like an embassy. You don't touch it. You don't use it. So it's a first. We're in uncharted waters. Is it legal? Is it not legal? That's the very first question. What is the legal basis to do this? It is unclear. It's a matter that needs to be solved. Before we can go forward on this, I think everybody would sleep better if we would know that the legality of it is underpinned. We will in any case be buried in litigation. That seems like a certainty. I don't think that Russia will take this in a nice way. I heard a Belgian journalist on television say, "Oh, I have the impression that for Putin this money is already written off." I do not have that impression. This is not exactly what we hear from Moscow. Moscow has told us that if we touch the money, we would feel the consequences until eternity, which seems to be a long time, eternity. So they will do countermeasures. That seems to be very logical. That can take the form of counter-confiscations of Western money frozen in banks in Russia, confiscation of Western-owned companies, European companies, Russian courts making decisions on confiscations, and maybe making these decisions also valid in other jurisdictions that are friendly to Russia. Russia also has allies. And if Russian courts start saying, we're going to seize European assets, can take all kinds of forms of assets. They could turn against the clients of Euroclear, which is the entire world, against the shareholders of Euroclear, companies of European origin, you name it. And they could imagine countermeasures against it in Russia and maybe also in allied countries. So it's risky business. I think an analysis on what the consequences could be would be helpful before you take a decision, that everybody who is on board, if all the member states are on board with this decision, that they need to know what they are risking. But of course, besides the counter-confiscations and the countermeasures, we will be buried in litigation. There is already a lot of litigation running. Because of course we have a treaty with Russia. It is the Belgo-Luxembourg investment treaty. And that foresees arbitrage and proceedings. And already on the frozen assets, we are under arbitrage. There's one of the oligarchs, Mr. Friedman, who is claiming countries with frozen assets like Luxembourg. He has 8 billion there, frozen, not immobilized, and he's claiming them for 16 billion. That's not very nice. That's like the sword of Damocles hanging over your head, claims of not only the money but also damages. So it could double the amount. If you take 180 billion, you could get for 360 billion of claims. And then you have to add all the frozen assets to that, who are already in litigation. That's enormous. That's enormous. So a legal basis is not a luxury. It's not a detail. Having a bit of legal certainty might help you and convince you that you will not start losing all that litigation and all these proceedings, because this could become very, very, very costly. So that's the first issue. If you talk about the Russian assets, is it legal? What are you based on? On which article in which treaty are you based on? Are you basing your decision on to go forward on taking the assets? Then there are a few more problems that need to be solved. The next one is probably the most important one, and you don't have to take it from me. We had the good fortune of having Christine Lagarde present at the Council together with Patrick Donoghue to give the semestral review on the Eurozone and the situation, the economic situation on the Eurozone and our monetary situation of the Eurozone. And of course this was the opportunity to ask Christine Lagarde, how do you see this? The idea of taking money that is on your balance, ECB balance, using it for something else, is this possible? And she said, well, it can be done. She didn't, of course, she's not a lawyer. She did not say it's legal or it's illegal. She said, it can be done, but there is one very important condition, and that is that the cash needs to be guaranteed the moment that Russia can actually claim the money for whatever reason, because a court decided so, the sanctions are lifted, there is a peace treaty that does not obligate Russia to pay back, there is a peace plan you could read Truth Social. Mr. Trump has a 12-point plan. In that plan, you see that the money has to return to Russia. Literally, it has to return to Russia 300 billion of immobilized assets. That's probably a figure worldwide. Have to return to Russia, and then Russia has to pay Ukraine for the damage. Well, in the hypothesis that Mr. Trump, who is a very strong man, gets this done in a year, then the cash needs to be there immediately. So in case the Russian claim becomes tangible, for whatever reason, you need in a very short amount of time to be able to guarantee that the cash is there. This is of course a problem.